Speaking today with former Washington Governor Gary Locke, who oversaw the 2010 census as U.S. Commerce Secretary and now is heading up Washington State's Complete Count Committee. Governor Locke, this is Census Day. What does that mean?
Well, it really is a reminder for all of us to participate in the 2020 census. It is so important for two reasons. First of all, it's required by the U.S. Constitution, and the very first one was conducted under President George Washington in 1790, and the questions are almost exactly the same. They haven't really changed, but it's important for two different reasons. Number one, it determines how many seats in the United States Congress each state will have, and as the population of the country changes, because there's only 435 seats in the United States Congress, some states might lose a seat in Congress, other states will gain, just as we gained in 2010, and states like New York and other places lost seats. So that's the first reason. If we want our voices heard, if we want our fair share of representatives in the United States Congress based on population, we need to be counted. The second reason is tens of billions of dollars every year in federal funds flow to our communities based on the count, whether it's for senior services, childhood nutrition programs, transportation, emergency preparedness, and things like that. Those dollars go following the people. And so our state, a few years ago, got tens of billions of dollars based on the census count. So if we want our fair share of money for the programs we really care about, whether it's even public health, as this coronavirus demonstrates we can never be too prepared for, we need to make sure that we're counted so that we get our fair share of the federal money. And if we're not counted, that money doesn't stay in the treasury of the Washington, D.C., it goes to another state. So we want our fair share.
People sometimes worry about the safety of their information or their privacy. What assurances can you give them?
Well, all through the decades, there's a separate law that says the information gathered by the census cannot be revealed to anybody or any other federal agency for 72 years. So your personal identifier, your name, your address, and things like that is not revealed. But what is revealed are the raw statistics, the ages of the people in your neighborhood or in your city, the gender, the ethnicity. Those raw statistics are used by government to determine, for instance, where should they put a bus route? I mean, how many people live in the area? Where should we put a fire station so it's in the middle of a population area? And also businesses use it to determine where to locate a supermarket or a big mall or things like that. But the information is kept private. Your personal identifier information is kept private and is not even shared by law enforcement. And it's a crime for any census worker to even reveal that information to anybody.
Speaking of census workers, obviously we were under our stay-at-home, stay-healthy policy here in Washington. So what does that mean for the canvassers?
Well, what the census always hopes for is that people will respond on their own. And this year, for the very first time, you can fill out the census form, these 10 questions, which really take less than 10 minutes. You can do it online, and everybody, you can go onto the website and fill it out or do it online, or you can just call in on a toll-free telephone number, and it's available in many, many languages, and they will take your information, and that's it. Some households are getting a paper form, and you fill that out and return it. And after a few months, after the government and community leaders and religious leaders and nonprofit organizations have done their best to encourage people to respond voluntarily, if they haven't, then the census will hire people during the summer to go door to door and to collect that information. So if you really want to protect your privacy and you don't want someone knocking on your door, or if you're concerned about the coronavirus and you don't want someone coming to your door, the best thing you can do is actually answer the census form right now online or using the toll-free telephone number.
So we have populations that are known as hard to count populations. What does that mean?
Well, hard to count populations are typically people who are moving around. Oftentimes it's students, it's people in the elderly, and it's minority communities, people who have don't feel connected to the United States government or to any government. recent immigrants who aren't familiar with this process, a little bit distrustful of government because they come from a culture in which government has never done some of these things, and so they're very suspicious of government. So those, and then of course, obviously the homeless, and we want to make sure that people who are constantly moving around, whether they're always traveling the country or things like that, they're hard to count.
So what do we do about that?
Well, that's why we need to encourage all of our friends and neighbors and relatives to participate in the census. That's why companies can play a very important role reminding their employees to participate in the census. And then we have special efforts underway, for instance, for people in retirement homes and group homes, nursing homes. They are counted by those institutions. And then if students are in dormitories, the colleges, universities are supposed to be counting those individuals. Right now, unfortunately, a lot of people have been sent home from the campuses are closed down and they're now back at home. So they really need to make sure that they're not counted twice. If technically they should be left for the colleges to count, but otherwise we need to make sure that we're counting everybody. And sometimes the people that are hard to count are the people who are renting inside the basement of our house. Let's say we have a spare room, we have a renter. The form goes to each household. And so unless it's a specific apartment that's registered, each household needs to fill it out. And so the person, the head of the household, or the people who own the house, living in the house, they should make sure that, let's say, the folks that are downstairs renting that little unit are included in that one count by the household.
That's a good example. I was also thinking about parents maybe who split custody, or, kids at a dorm are not at home or they're home now. You mentioned what to do with that, but if you're confused about who to count, what do you do?
Well, you can call online and fill out your census form on the telephone, and they'll walk you through some of those questions that you might have. But for instance, for people that are splitting time and living in certain different locations, I mean, a lot of retirees might live in the Seattle area and go down to Palm Desert or Florida or Arizona for the wintertime. And so they say, well, I'm getting a form at my house or my condo in Arizona, and I'm getting one here in Washington. Which one do I fill out? You fill it out for the one in which you consider your primary residence, in which you're living most of the time. And then for other things, the kids on child custody, where they split homes between mom and dad. Mom and dad have to decide who's going to report it. But typically, the rule is, where are they living on April 1?
Oh, that's good to know. So there are scams related to this, things that people are getting, particularly targeted to seniors. What do we need to look out for?
Well, make sure that you're only responding to the census form. And that's why it's so much better and safer to go online or by telephone. If seniors don't have a computer, and you can use anybody's computer, it doesn't have to be your own computer. If the libraries were open, you could do it at a library. You can do it with a neighbor's, or let's say your relative. If keeping those social distances, making sure they're healthy, but you can use someone else's computer, or just by telephone. That's the easiest way to do it, doing it over the telephone. But anytime you receive something by email or by letter saying, fill out the census and make a donation, or they're asking for your social security number, or they're asking for bank information, that's a scam. Different groups are using the census as a fundraising mechanism in which they're saying, we encourage you to fill out the census and help us fill out the census, ensure a good census, and send us some money. That's a scam. That is not related to the 2020 census. The 2020 census worker will never ask for your bank information, will not ask for social security numbers, will not ask for any type of, or will not ask for a contribution. So avoid anybody and anything that is asking you for money or personal information.
Okay, anything I missed that you'd like to add?
Well, this is so important. And because of the coronavirus and everybody staying at home, this is a perfect time in which you can fill out the form out of the comfort and the safety of your house, or going on the toll-free telephone number and responding to the census.
And remind us one more time, what all is at stake? When we are counted, what does that mean for our local community?
Well, this is a exercise that is in our U.S. Constitution. It first started under President George Washington in 1790. It happens every 10 years. And what is at stake is empowerment. Empowerment in terms of our voices in the United States Congress and even in the state legislature, because we have 49 legislative districts in the state of Washington, and with the Puget Sound area growing so rapidly, it's those borders have to be adjusted to make sure that you have the same number of people in every legislative district. So it's possible that the Puget Sound area will be able to squeeze in a new legislative district so that the new communities of Puget Sound will have their voices heard. But it's about political empowerment, making sure that our voices are fairly and accurately reflected in the halls of Olympia or in the United States Congress. We're not in danger of either losing a seat, and it doesn't look like we might possibly gain a new seat in the United States Congress under the 2020 census, but many states are. Oregon might pick up a seat, but California is on the verge of losing a seat. Texas will probably gain a seat. New York and many of the East Coast states will probably lose seats. So if you want to be sure that you're heard, your voices are heard in the halls of power, we need to be counted, and especially with respect to the Washington State Legislature. And the second empowerment is financial. Federal dollars flowing to our communities, our taxpayer money coming back to us based on the number of people in our area for roads, for senior services, for early childhood education programs, for nutrition programs, for emergency preparedness, crime prevention, and things like that. And if we're not counted, that federal money will go someplace else. So if we care about the issues in our community, if we care about our voices being heard in Congress or Olympia, we need to be counted.
Thank you very much. That was perfect.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Take care.